Sir Ridley Scott, again, congratulations. This is such an interesting story, and I know you've worked for a long time at different incarnations of it to bring it to the screen. I think it goes back several years. Why is now the right time for it, do you think? Lady Gaga, yes.
I had to find Patricia Gucci, and it was very difficult. But at the same time, it came together with an excellent screen by the gentleman down the far end, Roberto. So those two planets came together, and we're off and running. The key things for me is people say, "What's your plan?" I said, "The plan is there is no plan." I'm a bit like a child in a sweetie box and say, "I like that, I like that." And it's whatever appeals to me at that moment. So the choice is entirely visceral and intuitive. That's where it worked.
Did you have the cooperation of Gucci now in making this and making things available to you?
It would be very remiss of me not to talk about Janina, who I outlasted at a day. She's not here tonight. She's my wife, but also the producer of the film. And she's carried this for almost 25 years. Her passion for it kept pushing at me, saying, "You've got to read this version, you've got to read that version." So of course I was helpful, but it didn't ever really land for me. It didn't appeal to me until she finally, we got this piece of material from Roberto. She'd been dealing with him at that level, and he delivered something. You know, it's a very difficult piece of material because it can fall between two stools. It can be about fashion. It can be about the family, the destructive family, which I compare with the Borgias or the Medicis, okay? It's a 21st century version of that kind of family group that are self-destructive automatically they destroy the family from inside out. All that was very interesting, but the balance was never quite right. And also the balance was never emotional. I think I don't care what you do, whether it's a horror movie or whether it's a comedy, it better have some major emotional backbone to it. And that's what I was waiting for. Now we have it. That's how I got such a marvelous cast here. They're all attracted by the written word.
It's an amazing cast. Actually, when we were sitting here before the movie started and you saw the poster essentially on the screen, it's Academy Award winner, Academy Award winner, Academy Award nominee, Academy Award. I mean, putting this cast, this level together is rare these days, especially for a studio adult drama. Let's start with Lady Gaga, who is just phenomenal here. So you're playing Patrizia. She's still alive. She got out of prison in 2016. Did you or have you, since making the film, had any contact with her?
No, I never had any contact with Patrizia Gucci. We talked about it, and no. I read a lot about her. I read everything that I could possibly find, mostly exposition about her. I tried to find mostly the facts only, things that were not colored by any thinking, so that I could form an opinion of my own. And what I found was that when I watched her in interviews, I started to pick up on the nuances of when she was telling the truth and when she was lying. And I thought, well, if I'm with her in person, she most certainly will lie, and I most certainly will maybe be nervous or not and be unable to tell. So I didn't want anyone to tell me who Patrizia Gucci was other than myself, as well as my cast members and my director. It was important to me that I became not only curious, but fascinated and fixated on what happened to this woman, that she would make such a terrible mistake. And that all these men in this family would come together and that they would be fighting over the money, over the power and the balance of wealth in an Italian family, which I can't possibly understand why any woman would try to infiltrate an Italian family business. As an Italian woman, I would never, my father owns a restaurant. I would never even try to engage in anything about business with my father. But Patrizia, she is smart, and she, more than anything, she understands that her class is much lower than the Gucci's. And you saw the film this evening, and when we were filming, and after I saw the film, I noticed the nuance in the film, which is that, she tries, but she's an embarrassment as she does so. She wants to belong, but she does not. And in a lot of ways, I relate to that. So I think I brought that part of myself to the character. and also found a way to assimilate backwards, back from an Italian American into an Italian who wanted to survive. And no matter how much she tried to survive, she simply could not, and she failed.
You know, I think it's really interesting in the lore of Hollywood and the history of Hollywood. Italians, and particularly in Italian crime, has sometimes been handled very poorly. You have to have a certain reverence for the people you're portraying here. And I'm sure that was front of mind for you, to do an authentic portrayal that is not a stereotype.
It was very important to me that I do that, particularly with the accent. If you do some research on Northern Italian accents, that is what I did for Patrizia. It does not sound like a normal Italian accent. It's specific to the North. And the truth is that I wanted to portray a real woman, a real Italian woman who wanted to do better, because her family was, I believe, in crime, something that we, I think from a sort of journalistic property, tried to understand. And although she tried to do better, she ultimately ended up a criminal herself. But in some ways, I think that our emotions and our visceral activity can be an accident. That's nature. Cole Porter says that. I love jazz. Cole Porter says it's nature, that's all. This was Patrizia's nature. She was simply too hurt, and she did a bad thing. And she deeply regrets it, I believe.
And Adam, you two are just great together. Congratulations on this. I'm wondering what level of research you did into Maurizio. Obviously, he died in 1995. But what could you find? What was the trick for playing this character for you?
I mean, I looked up what was available, but it was more, for me, it's in the script and in our conversations that I had with Ridley and Gaga before we started. We had two weeks of rehearsal, which was a luxury, and we kind of, regardless of what reality is, you know, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes not. I played real people before who were alive, and I feel like the good thing is to take the pieces that open your imagination and kind of disregard the things that don't help, because it's often, it's a movie, so it's different. It's not a autobiographical. So to me, it was more themes that were interesting. Someone who starts very aware of the pitfalls of this thing that he was born into. How do you start a character that begins the movie saying, you know, Gucci is like a cake where you just take a bite and you want the whole thing, and then ends up being running it as an empire, basically becoming everything that he hates, and then is only realized as a person in the very last moments of his death. That was interesting to me. And someone who is just sidelined, knowing what he knows just by love. He just becomes infatuated and is in love with Patrizia, and will kind of go where she takes him. So that was easy to play with Gaga, and great in the script. And obviously Ridley just sets it up to give you incredible freedom and gives you incredible trust. So, you know, it's like all the elements together. It's easy to say yes to.
How much time did you have with Gaga before filming began to sort of develop this relationship?
We spent years together.
Yeah, a little hut that we rented.
We did. We lived in Africa
In
for a long
Africa,
time.
in Kenya specifically. 2 weeks, but it wasn't something that we talked about. We didn't sit down and be like, now let's work on chemistry and stare at each other. We just
We just prayed.
we prayed.
Yeah, we prayed. But you know what? With a director like Ridley Scott, you can't not create alchemy on set. I mean, the chemistry on set, I think, was palpable because the stage was set to be so, and he always made sure of that. And I felt that I got to know both the actor and the character at the same time, which I think is a true gift, and it can only be given to you by both the actor and the director creating the space to do so. So thank you, Rid.
And I would say shooting a movie with someone is very nerve-wracking, because you're watching them under an incredible amount of pressure, and you're racing a lot of elements, but biggest one being time. But you're also fighting technology, and you're fighting other personalities, and being diplomatic and knowing when to assert yourself and when not to. So you're seeing someone in incredible stakes. And when someone is setting the tone at the top under that incredible amount of pressure, but is setting a tone of freedom and being like, I see that that we're racing this thing, but I'm gonna just be here with you. That kind of speaks more than without saying anything. And that's what Ridley is like. He leads by example, and the actors that he picks, I feel, all follow that same kind of policy. You look at those people and you can tell that they're not anywhere else other than with you, and how it results is not really our concern. And I mean, you can't not bond with people that are there obviously supporting you.
Sir Ridley, let me ask you about that, because you had done Last Duel before this picture. At one point it stopped because of the pandemic and everything, but did you always have Adam from doing Last Duel when you were thinking of this film?
We were in the moodiest part of France, ironically less than a kilometer from where I shot my first movie, was The Duelist. And it's incredibly beautiful, a very moody place. There was a moment where we had a natural break because we were finished in France, so it was a financial break to then move to Ireland for other scenes and sets. And so I said, let's break it down right now and resume. So we saved a lot of money by doing that. But actually then we reconnected 2 months later. But in that time, I was already identifying what I'm going to do next. So I think when I came back, I had my sights on him and said, listen, I think he's putting on a suit of armor that morning saying, how do you feel about paying a fashion guy? I said, what? I said, marriage security. What? And then we went and did the scene. He gave me an answer after lunchtime.
And I stood outside his house and shouted for a long time, said, please, please, please.
In Africa.
Definitely, I think the clothes were probably more fun to wear in this after doing Last Duel.
I mean, it depends what you're into, I guess.
All right, Jared Leto. I actually was talking to you for a wonderful movie, Little Things, and I said, what are you doing next? And you were so excited, because I'm going to do this Gucci. It's the greatest cast ever. And you were really looking forward to it. And I have to say, if we're going to compare shit and chocolata, your performance is chocolata.
But do you know the difference?
I think so.
Because trust me, I know. I know.
So did this
Was there a question there? I don't
did
know.
this live up to your expectations?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ridley is one of the greatest directors in the history of cinema. That's clear. And, you can take your pick from Blade Runner to Alien to The Martian. The breadth, the depth of the career is just astounding. I don't know if anyone's made films as powerful and relevant for as long as he has ever. It's quite astounding. So I met him in 2003, and I've been begging to work with him ever since. And thankfully, he finally said yes. And, I was just so thrilled to be on the set with another great American treasure here, Lady Gaga, who's just a phenomenal artist. And was just in awe of what she did. And I just feel super grateful to be part of this. I feel really lucky to be here with you guys celebrating in a theater, which is just incredible. But there was a lot of magic. Sometimes you're on sets and you got to really fight hard for that. And I just felt like every scene that I had was just full of magic. And I got a chance to work with Lady Gaga and Adam and then my father, Al Pacino. I mean, my God. That's just a piece of heaven. So for me, it was a dream come true. And I'm really grateful for those beautiful words, So thankful.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, you are a true character actor. It's very clear, and you just throw yourself into this, and it's not a caricature. It's so interesting to see, if I get actory here, the choices that you make. The vocal work here, and everything you did into it. So tell us, just what your process is in approaching this character, and did you have tape on him at any time, or did you go off on your own here?
Well, there's actually very little footage of him. There was just a tiny bit of video footage, and he was quite cheeky, to use an English term. He always had a wink, a smile in his eyes. He was very playful, very funny, very fun. A little wicked sense of humor, you could tell, but it was enough to really stoke my imagination. And, like Lady Gaga was saying, I just went on a journey. You become a detective, a journalist, and you find the things that stoke your imagination and put you on a path to hopefully building a character, a real person. But you could probably tell I had a really good time doing this. I miss Paolo. I really do. Yeah. I do.
Me too.
I do.
What was the makeup, the hair, that whole process on a daily basis for you to transform?
I mean, obviously, there was a huge physical transformation for everyone here in terms of the voice. And, the beautiful thing about the Italian accent is it's so musical, It's a gorgeous accent. And when you dig into it, of course, there's so many nuances. And the family all spoke quite different, from one another. Maurizio to Paolo to Patrizia, everyone spoke quite different. And it was nice to explore those intricacies. But to do it in Italy in this time was very special. And Italian people I find to be some of the most generous and amazing people in the world. So it was easy to fall in love with everything Italian. The physical part of it was a lot, as you can imagine. But it's what needed to be done. And of course, the physical is just one part of it. It's really the most important part is the inside. It's that journey. It's the heart. It's the soul.
So it says inspired by a true story here, Roberto, and there is a book that it's all, I guess, based on. But how inspired, what's the difference, and what dramatic license may you have taken with this?
Well, the book was very helpful. I mean, it's sort of like the biography of the family from beginning to end. And the main thing really is you have to put the book away and realize that it's a work of fiction. It's a work that's inspired, as you said. And the other thing was just diving into articles from the 70s and 80s about the family that were written at the time. So, I speak Italian, so I could go into like the Repubblica and Corriere della Sera, the actual newspapers, and see what people were saying about the Gucci family. And I found a lot of wonderful little nuggets of gold. But the main thing was really just to be free, and to create something that was obviously based in history, but also, at the end of the day, a film,
What was the most interesting thing for you about this family as you spent so much time in writing about them? What makes them great material for movies?
I think the fact that it's such a colorful canvas, that I immediately just thought of The Godfather and Shakespeare and Greek tragedy and all these very, very big stories. And the fact is we don't really see those very often, at least not in film. I think maybe they've moved more towards television or they just don't get made anymore. And so the fact that this was an opportunity to really kind of dive in and tell a story that spans 30 years with all these great intrigues and characters and locations and, it was endless. I mean, the potential was endless.
Kevin, as a film and the logistics of shooting during a pandemic here and everything you had to go to in making this and shooting in Italy, I think Italy even doubled for Switzerland in this as well, too. Yeah. What were the unique challenges that you haven't had on your many, many films before?
Well, I first went back. I'm going to say this is Roberto's first film. This is his first produced movie, and so I think it's worth a big round of applause. And I also want to reiterate what Ridley said. Pete just said Janina Scott, Ridley's wife, our producer, who's not here. One of the best signs of a producer is, as you know, just tenacity. And she stayed with this film for 27 years, optioned the book, and was dogged in trying to get it made. So I just want to, acknowledge Gina because she couldn't be here tonight. But there were, heaps of challenges. As if, making movies isn't hard enough. We know, getting these, very expensive family dramas made is near impossible. You need 800-pound gorilla like Ridley to push these through these days. On Gucci, we were in 5 cities in Italy. We were in the Alps. We were in like Como, Milan, Rome, other cities outside of Rome. So it was an extraordinary lift, but the way it looks with Ridley's design, he hand draws every single frame of the movie, which no directors do. And to see that come to life in those real locations, despite how difficult it was to get there and test people and keep everyone safe, it was worth it.
What was the shooting schedule here? How long did you have to make this?
We were 2 weeks on the schedule.
We were 2 weeks under schedule, sir.
Wow.
You know, here's for directors. I don't know why you guys don't use at least 4 cameras. What is the matter with you? It's so much faster.
Amen.
No, seriously.
Amen.
When you got your key light, you actually plan the geometry in your head of how the actor may look its best, him or her best in a given position. Then you say, camera, camera, camera. Bring them on. How long? 20 minutes, make it 10, and we're off and running.
Ridley shoots at all times 4 to 8 cameras at minimum. And the way it works is he has 6 monitors that are small. They're about 20 inches. And then there's a big, 60-inch monitor. And all the monitors are labeled with our camera operators' names. And as Ridley shoots, the tent where he's shooting is mic'd. And so our video operator is live cutting the scene as Ridley films it. And so he films the scene and he calls out the camera operators' names and they live cut the scene while he watches it. No one does this. It's extraordinary. The word's overused, but it's the work of a genius. And when he finishes that one take, the operator then can play back what Ridley's called out. And so you see a live cut of the movie within seconds. It's extraordinary.
But I can add to that. No, the whole reason of designing that was to give freedom and the freedom of repetition to the performance. Because if you get it in one take, because you covered 4 different angles, and I'm the first one always to say to any actor or actress, I think you've got it. You want to go again? If you want to go again, I don't go. You go 10 times. But infrequently, after 2 or 3, I've noticed over the years, they nearly always nail something in the first or second take. You never rehearse, have that camera on, because you might get magic. And that was the policy. And suddenly, it enables freedom for the performers, because they feel free. So whatever they do, it's always captured 4 different or 6 different ways. So you may have it then in one go.
And it is a real gift for the actors. It should be the standard, not the exception. It is a beautiful gift to give that freedom to the actors.
It's about saving the energy and saving the immediacy. And I like it because it's like life. If I ask you a question, you don't know what I'm going to say, you're going to be a little nervous or a little bit you're going to be waiting for the question. That's what it should be like. So it's a little bit undecided, it's a little bit non-specific, and I like that kind of edge.
I can't tell you what a privilege it is to work with somebody that you have to be so ready for, that demands absolute excellence and focus from you, that you must rise to the occasion, because if you don't, you haven't done your research. You don't know your character, you don't know the story, and you don't know who you're dealing with. And I really appreciate you in every way, Red. I knew every day on set that I had to be ready for him to capture something that I didn't even know I could do. And I think if you try to control everything you're doing as an actor, you're not giving the director the opportunity to grab something from you that you don't even know you have. So thank you.
Yeah, my biggest compliment after any performance is special. I normally go up and say, Christ, where did that come from? Because I hadn't thought about it, and I would never have thought about it. And they stepped way across and above the mark and delivered.
And I should mention all the other actors. Jared mentioned Al Pacino. Your scenes with him, he's just vintage Pacino in this movie, too. Jeremy Irons, great. Selma Hayek is a hoot. And all your scenes with her, that part of the movie, was that all true? Was that something, in developing that?
Which part?
with Salma Hayek, the whole psychicness of it all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Pino Remia was Patricia's best friend, and she was from Naples. So also, when I was working on my accent, I had a particular type of style when I was speaking with her, Neapolitan, and it's a little bit different. But what's amazing about their relationship is that I almost find that it becomes abusive towards the end, because she's insisting that this woman do anything possible to help her, anything possible to tell her the truth. And when she says no to her, Patrizia doesn't like that, and she just begins this process of becoming this, young woman that's willing to do anything to matter, and then willing to do anything to destroy you so that she can get what she wants. But that only happens in the face of a lack of understanding of what's important in life. She loses complete focus of reality and relationships and realness, the hallmarks of being an Italian. Relationships, realness. It's gone. And she's stuck in a mind frame of power and privilege.
Congratulations, everybody, and thanks for
Pete.
coming out.
Thank you.